What's up, guys? GP here, back with another episode of the Who is Vince Staples podcast. It's a podcast about the Vince Staples Show. This podcast will actually only be 5 episodes long because the show is 5 episodes long. Because it's a limited series, we know that there will not be a season 2, at least of this exact version of the show. So therefore, this podcast will be short. So enjoy it, guys.
I stay out the way and get my money up. Praying to the Lord I make it safely home.
As we get into episode 2, which is called Black Business, I do want to introduce the idea of this episode as something that I think is very important. And I do not want to keep drawing comparisons with Atlanta, but with Atlanta being one of my favorite shows, and this being one of my new favorite shows, I think it's important that we see with these celebrities, in the stories they tell with these celebrities, that their life isn't that different. And the reason I say that is because I feel like a lot of people who are unfortunate, or a lot of people who don't have very much money, even like myself, who don't have a ton of money, or like just what we would consider rich, and what we do to ourselves, our minds, our emotions, our mental, to try to get money and try to get possessions, and sometimes even very destructive actions in order to do this, it's not worth it when you're still going to face some of the same issues on the other side. And no, this is not me saying no one wants to be successful, make money, things like that, but also that, 1, be prepared to face very similar obstacles, but 2, know that it's not worth everything. It's not worth your dignity, it's not worth your pride, it's not worth any of these things to try to achieve certain levels of money with some grandeur or grand idea of what happens as soon as you get that amount of money. So let's get into it.
I'm sorry, bathrooms are for clients only.
So Vince starts the episode, of course, walking into the bank, asking if he can talk to a loan officer, and the lady just starts laughing. This is something that every black person watching the show would have immediately thought would happen. We'd immediately think, okay, he's going into a bank, that's not going to work out well. How often do banks work out well for black men? I do want to say, though, that the Carhartt jacket with the flowers, the green Carhartt jacket is it's crazy. I love that jacket. I want one. I don't know if I want, maybe if it was a different color, I'd like it too, but the jacket is hard. Even the color it is. But Vince is in the bank, and he's now, you can tell from the confidence he at least initially walked in with, he's like, I got a little bit of bread. I have a business idea. Let me go into the bank. This is like the conventional American way to get businesses started, small business loans, stuff like that. And he's kind of, I feel like, taken aback by the response because of this is the situation in the show, but obviously in real life, this is probably what he would expect. He's a pretty intelligent dude.
Small business loan.
And so he, of course, presents his business idea to the loan officer, which I do think is very curious or interesting, that Vince is for sure richer than this loan officer, or at least makes more on a yearly basis than this loan officer, I would guess. And so the nuance of these type of things, even like car dealers, that's another example of people who look down almost on customers, but probably are less advantaged than the customer. And then the conversation gets into the innate feelings and of the nature of rap music, and how a lot of white people and even older black people and older people in other races and stuff don't really see it as a sustainable art form, even though we're just now celebrating, 50 years of hip-hop, so it's been around for a little bit. But people don't see it as a sustainable art form, or a reliable source of income, or even a real source of income.
Rapper.
And there lies our problem, Mr. Staples.
Like if Vince Staples had come in there and said he was a painter, I feel like it would have been met with more receptive or better reception than rapper. That's why he didn't even really want to say it. And the dude exposes himself when Vince asks,
what's the #1 cause of death in the black and brown community?
Guns.
Sugar.
so he's automatically going with that negative aspect of the violence in the black community and stuff like that. And that would tell you what where the conversation's going. Vince is actually playing a naive character very well, in my opinion. He's playing a character that's just optimistic. I'm just doing things the right way. I'm just trying. And I respect it, because in this life, if you don't ask and you don't make somebody tell you no, then you won't ever even get a chance.
Introducing Kapow Pops, the breakfast of the future.
But Vince is clearly prepared. He has the business proposal. He has the food, the cereal idea ready that he wants to present to the dude. And the dude's in no way taking him seriously at all. And the amount of money Vince asked for is probably high, realistically, for that a bank would let anybody, regardless of race or whatever, do for cereal targeted at black people. Because, I mean, even think about healthy cereal. Like, how many truly healthy cereal options are there? There's very few. And very few that you could sell to kids and market to communities that people would actually buy boxes of and want. So, with all that being said, it's a joke that the idea, in my opinion, that the idea is not amazing, but it's also part of the joke for sure that he's not being taken seriously at all.
I can tell by looking at the first page. This is not going to work out.
So as Vince heads out, he sees Rick Ross in the waiting room, and I feel like Rick Ross just be asking to be in all these shows. Rick Ross is in a lot of television these days, I swear. He was in Dave's show as well.
What's up, little bro?
So first off, Rick Ross is smoking a blunt in the bank with all his alcohol and Wingstop set up. Great marketing, obviously. Got the Bel Air Rosé on deck, got the Wingstop on the table, got the chains on, he chilling, smoking a blunt, whatever. Rick Ross is always showing up like that, like smoking a blunt in the bank. Like, Rick Ross is always gonna present himself as the coolest dude in the room.
They just told me entertainers don't make enough money to even bank it.
That's why the fuck you gotta diversify.
There's some hidden truths in that, because he found Rick Ross, who is an entertainer, who is a rapper, and is the best example probably of a diversified rapper other than Snoop Dogg, and obviously like Jay-Z. Jay-Z's on a different level, but Rick Ross is very diversified with all the businesses. He had his business in the scene, so in real life, he's very diversified. He teaches the lesson of needing to be diversified because the one source of income from rap isn't enough to play ball in this bank and gets to promote his brand.
Thousands of chickens running around everywhere. Quack, quack, quack.
Chickens don't make quack sounds. He said quack, 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 like that. To me, in my mind, that's a duck. So I didn't know if that was a joke or if Rick Ross just said that fried and they just kept that in there. But quack, quack, quack is a very strange way of saying we got chickens running around. Also, with the Rick Ross scene, it is interesting to me how Rick Ross is about to just peel him off the bread and let him do it that way, but Vince didn't want it that way. He wanted an official loan to pay back. He didn't want it in cash. I don't know. I think I would have took the loan. I think I would have took the loan from Rick Ross and asked to draw up some paperwork or something like that. I think that's actually a more safer option, or a safer option than the bank, especially because Rick Ross has the brand that can also hold the cereal up and being like, hey, I'm eating this to help lose weight. But I think Vince is just showing that he's trying to do the traditional American channels of entrepreneurship, but it's not working out for him. Maybe this is realistic, but they got people playing putt-putt in the bank, really just showing how good of a time I think that like white people have in banks. Like, it's literally like fun for them. Like, this is a fun place to hang out. Like, I've never really seen this many people in a bank lobby just hanging out. I've been in a good amount of banks now too. Maybe if it's a bank where a lot of people need to do like business paperwork registration, but that's still not happening like every day to where it would be busy. So I think the scene is funny, and just the comfortability that white people have, at least in this scene, chilling in the bank. And then comes the bank heist. And of course, while Vince is checking out and about to leave and has already had a bad time in the bank, is when the bank gets robbed.
Nigga with the flower. The only nigga in here.
I know that's not the homie.
So this is obviously the point, or the climax of the episode. Like, come on, dude, he knows the bank robbers and they're actually cool. Like, I see this as an instance in a very conjured up fake instance of like black privilege. Like when you're put in a position where it's advantageous to be black. There's so few of them in America. Like so few of them. Like recess, getting picked for sports. Very few. You could say like the NBA, but that's such a small percentage of humans that it's barely like an advantage to be black to do that. But in this instance, Vince Staples is literally bailed out. So the whole situation of the bank is ass because he's black. And now all of a sudden, because this situation popped off, it's an advantage that he is black. Like the little jokes in there, he brings up Epsom salt bath. He talks about eating salt. Like obviously two completely different things.
Epsom salt bath.
Hey, bro, that's a good idea. I'm gonna tell her about that, bro. She only be eating salt.
They're catching up. The people in the back are still robbing the bank. Everybody in the vicinity is obviously terrified because there's a dude with a machine gun standing on a table and some Jordans and some face paint on. Just all the fact that they know Vince Staples immediately gives away what their identity is. And the fact that they're like promoting who Vince Staples is going to get them jammed up in the future. Just the short-sightedness of that, but also the politeness in which he's doing things. It's such a well-acted scene.
We ain't gonna do nothing to the baby. How many months are you gonna do a gender reveal? Go over there, elevate the feet.
Vince is this man's probably only successful friend, and he says that line of,
You was like one of my only friends that she really fucked with.
that's such a black-eared statement. That's a statement because like black people are very protective of who their kids hang out with because of like the mix of different communities and stuff like that often. So with that being said, the mom will usually approve of it because parents can see a kid on a good path, and clearly Vince ended up on the best path of the group of people robbing the bank and stuff like that. So the script writing, dude, it's great because that little line in there is such a black line, and these are the lines that confirm to us that there's black people in this writer's room. He tells him,
I stay dangerous, low.
bro has a machine gun in his hand. Of course he's gonna stay dangerous. And before that, he said,
Make sure you lock up. We trying to keep shit
I got
secure.
you.
like it's his crib. We trying to keep shit secure. The way he's talking about it, the nonchalantness, he doesn't realize the gravity of the situation. Vince absolutely realizes the gravity of the situation, but at the same time, it's still just good to see the homie. I really feel like with these aspects of the conversation that Vince Staples is humanizing everybody. In the last episode, he did humanize the police. The police were Vince Staples fans who just had him jammed up. They made a mistake, and obviously it was stupid, whatever, but he still made them look human. He didn't make them look... He made them look kind of like assholes, but they weren't evil. In the same way that he's humanizing these guys robbing the bank. These guys robbing the bank, we think of bank robbers and people doing heists and all this other type of stuff or holding up places as dangerous, crazy criminals, not just what these people end up being, which is just desperate people. But still, overall good dudes. Because as black people, we know people that do like dangerous shit or do crazy shit. But when you speak to them, they're a good dude. It's like, obviously, they're going to be seen as demons in society. But that doesn't mean when you engage with somebody can be evil or do bad things. But when you engage with them, be the most polite person on earth.
Y'all got all the X's covered? This shit big time.
We trying to keep this shit professional.
Vince gassing up his bank robbery. He's gassing up Vince as a rapper. But come on, like a good friend, good old friends, just in such a strange predicament or situation at this point. But that doesn't diminish how Vince feels about him as a person. And I think that's amazing. So Vince can't really go out. And so he's caught up in the middle of this bank robbery. He knows the bank robbers, so he's not in danger at all. At this point, he's literally just a little bit inconvenienced because he can't leave. So he's in here making coffees. He's making coffees for the dudes. He's even like snitching on the bank workers. Like, he's on the side of protecting himself. In the last episode, and he'd tell people whatever they need to say, or whatever he needs to say to get out of a situation. Vince, it's clear in these episodes, is moldable to wherever he needs to be in the exact situation. And right now, just to keep calm, just to relax, he's making some coffee.
You want one? Could you look like macchiato?
Also, what's interesting to me is the juxtaposition. Right now, Vince is now... So you remember early in the episode, people were playing putt-putt, people were enjoying their drinks, people were eating their chocolates, the Rochelle Ferrero, whatever chocolates. They were having a good time. And now they feel like they're in a hostile situation. And Vince is drinking coffee, enjoying it, making a macchiato for one of the other assailants. It's just where black people feel comfortable can just literally be in opposite situations of other people. And obviously, this is a very extreme situation, but Vince is cool, calm, and collected. Even when he didn't know that he knew the people, he was just like, bruh, I just want to keep my briefcase and get out of here. At no point was he as shook as the rest of the people in the store, because he's used to these situations. And of course, in the way that the episode had to go, now the loan officer, loan manager, needs Vince. He needs Vince to get him out of the issue. And now Vince has a little bit of leverage.
I noticed that you know the assailants.
Allegedly.
And so, another example, it's rare that a black man can have leverage over a bank or have leverage over powerful money systems. And so it almost takes these, on Vince's part, instances of luck to be able to capitalize on the situation. And this is the type of luck he needed. So then he just comes, sits down with the homie, and they have a conversation, calm, collected, because Vince is just trying to pick his brain. Because sometimes I feel like, and I do this with my friends, and not friends that are robbing banks. I don't have friends that are robbing banks, but I was just trying to see, like, where's your head at? Like, where are you thinking about this? Even if I don't agree with it, even if I do agree with it, even if I wish you would have invited me, even if I wish you would have stayed away from me with this, just where was your head at when you were thinking about this?
Shit, you tell him how much you want it?
800,000.
It's a little light, don't you think?
I ain't greedy.
But Vince, being successful at this point, understands what desperation looks like, understands what it looks like when people don't have plans, understands what it looks like when his friends are wayward and lost because he's found his purpose. Like, he's got a girl, he's got a house, he's got a career. People with those type of things set up in their life know what it looks like when people don't.
So boom, I've been learning how to fly on the Oculus, you know what I'm saying? It's real, the flight simulator joint.
And people are struggling, and people can't afford things. People know what that looks like. So Vince is listening and doing such a good job of being non-judgmental, but just kind of talking his friend through the situation and just trying to get some logic out of his friend, because his friend is talking a big game, but obviously, because of the situation that Vince has gotten himself into in life, understands that his friend's not in a good position. And even the dude asking for $10 million, or Vince telling the dude he needs $10 million, that doesn't make any sense. Who would ask for $10 million? There's no way that anybody has $10 million in cash on hand. And so, as Vince goes and looks for the key to get to the safe to try to find any cash that he can, he then runs into the janitor. And then this is where the hint of ridiculous in this show comes from. Because obviously the whole premise of this, it's a ridiculous episode. But at the same time, this is where he slips in that black conspiracy that...
Then on January 2nd, 1863, Mr. Fargo sold this here bank and all these properties to Mr. Barclay. And Mr. Barclay, he best I could ask for.
Then he walks away singing a Negro spiritual. What I would say about that scene is, us as young black people, sometimes we see some older black people and their mindset, the way they move, their disposition towards white people, and even not even that powerful of white people, as this type of action. And they may not be saying this, but this is what they're doing with their actions in our perspective. And their perspective, They're maybe being good Americans, being whatever, staying on a certain path. But to a lot of us younger black people, it really looks like groveling. And so I think Vince understands that, and the writers in his writer's room who are millennials like us understand that, and they put it like literally in there. In the same way that we have some friends, all of us have some friends that we look at their direction and we get a little bit scared for them, as in the guy robbing the bank. For a lot of us, it's not that. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be too much TV, it could be too much video games, it could be whatever. But for him, and having the friends that he has coming from like the Crip neighborhood that he comes from, like that's how they show that. And with the old man, that's how they show the element of kind of like the idea of the old groveling black dude here in America.
God's gonna trouble the war.
So this is where Vince is really imparting some truth on the viewer when he sees the picture of the bank. He sees the old family after the black man talks about the transferring of the bank through a few wealthy white families. And it's coming to him because he's now in this bank. He's in this world of wealth. And he's seeing now the depths of these things. The black man went back multiple generations. So he might be groveling, like I said before, but he does understand history, and he understands how the situation got to where it was, and how these banks, these modern day corporations, these Coca-Colas, these, all these big tech companies, these like Heinz, these major big box brands that we see all the time, these Johnson & Johnsons, were families, and these were powerful, wealthy white people at the beginning of the United States, and they've just bought and sold these different corporations that guys like this are working for, just cleaning floors, but they're like buying and selling his fate, because that's his link to being able to get money. And so this scene really makes that connection, I think, or it shows the connection for Vince, and hopefully teaches the viewer, and that's why I'm talking about this as well, and the connection between like slave owners and the owners of corporations today, as well as some people who work some more subservient jobs, and they come from generations of people who've also worked subservient jobs. So sometimes things can still happen generation after generation, and there's generational wealth, the people who own the banks, and then generational poverty, the dude who's cleaning the floors. But either way, they are both passed on from generation to generation.
Look, baby, I'm 6 foot sexy, all right? Light brown caramel complexion.
This dude's out here caking, giving away his information, but actually winning over old girl in the lobby. Like, she's actually giggling and enjoying the conversation. And that's a funny aspect, because niggas be like that. Niggas be like able to pick up women. Like, niggas really be having like women in prison, like the female guards, like that. To turn somebody out like that, and they're serving like prison time and losing their job and stuff like that. Some dudes have power in how they speak, dude, for real. And how they're able to talk to women. This dude's robbing this lady and getting her information. And obviously the lady next to her is writing down this Instagram so he can get jammed up later. But shooters are going to shoot. And this dude is shooting mid-bank robbery with paint on his face. And then he gets the worst news. And when they go back to the safe, and of course they had a horrible plan from the jump, but then Vince hits him with this genius line.
This was a heist.
What's the difference?
It's simple. You do a heist, you George Clooney. You rob a bank, you Queen Latifah.
Like, the way he words stuff in that sentence, the way he worded that sentence was amazing. Like, because the Queen Latifah, George Clooney, we all get that. They both have robbery and heist movies. The way they did it was definitely not in the best manner. the fact that somebody else got to the bank first is a great twist, hilarious. I didn't think about that. Like, that was a good diversion in the plan, or in what was going on. But at the same time, the plan was originally horrible. He said he learned how to fly on a flight simulator, and he was going to take a helicopter out, and they're going to wait it out in Mexico for as long as they could in Tulum, or Tulum. He called it Tulum. And the plan was horrible from the jump. So it was already doomed to fail. Vince was just helping him out. Vince was pretty much, knowing that it was doomed to fail, was helping him get through the situation to help himself get through with this situation quicker. The lady's back there on the couch. She has her feet up and stuff, the pregnant lady in the back. I think that's hilarious. Like, she did what they said, and they're not hurting her at all. And Vince is now telling him...
In the movies, they always let out 2 hostages at a time.
And then he daps him up. He's okay. The dude's come to his resolution at his mistake. He understands that he was jumping the gun a little bit in his plan. Not a little bit, a lot in his plan. And didn't have everything planned out. And now he's kind of sitting in that shame. But now that he's learned his lesson, it's time for Vince to head out. And because this dude's going to help him get a business and he has that leverage, they leave the bank together. But since Vince has dealt with the police, even last episode, he understands how to deal with the police. He understands to keep his hands up. He understands the consequences. And this dude, not knowing those consequences, got him killed.
I wouldn't do that if I were...
And so a little bit more black privilege. Like, in America, the police are dangerous to all of us. But a lot of times it seems like only black people really know that. Vince, knowing that and knowing that these people will murder you, like, off rip, he kept his hands up. He was safe. The other dude fiddling around doing all this stuff because he probably ain't been pulled over all the time. He probably didn't go to jail last week. He probably hasn't dealt with the police a whole bunch. Dead. But that's also his source. They get into the serial a little bit later, but it's interesting that you could be that lucky, that unlucky, then that lucky, and then that unlucky that quickly. Because that dude was his way of getting the business loan. Technically, without him, I don't think they had the paperwork yet. So technically, his dream could have died with that dude. But that's episode 2 of Who is Vince Staples. Episode name is Black Business. I'll be back soon with episode 3. I appreciate all the people who have tuned in. Feel free to hit the subscribe button. Feel free to hit the follow button, depending on whether you're on podcast or on YouTube. Regardless of where you're at, you're helping me stay motivated and keep these episodes coming out. I'll see you guys next time.
I stay out the way and get my money up. Praying to the Lord I make it safely home.